I feel like it's been forever, but I know it really hasn't been. But this is Strictly Kayak Fishing. Yes, I had to look at my notes to make sure I said it right because a couple times I misspoke. But I'm BillyKayaks again, and I'm here today with Aaron Stiger. How's it going, man?
It's going good, Billy. Thanks for having me on, man. Appreciate it.
Heck yeah. And then we were trying to, I was trying to get Quentin Eccles on here too. So he will likely be on a future episode because both of you were equally as interested, when I reached out to you guys or when you guys reach out to me, just wanting to talk about all things fishing in Ohio. And so, Quentin, we miss you. Hope you're doing okay. Hope you're not sick or
Yeah,
anything. He's not sick. He's not,
you'll be
he's
all
in
right.
better, he, he's in better shape in like his pinky finger than like my entire body.
Well,
So
when you're like a firefighter for Columbus, I feel like
yeah,
that says it all. Anything needs to be said. There you go.
that's right. And so we're gonna get into a bunch of stuff today. I want to talk about Ohio tournaments and just like local tournaments and kind of tie it all together because after all, we've talked about how this is Strictly Kayak Fishing is the name of this YouTube channel or podcast if you're listening. So make sure you click all those things that you have to do, like, subscribe. There's a reason why people say that at the beginning of their video because if you like the content and you want to hear more, that's how we find out. You like, subscribe, and then you get to see more of this. So if you like what you hear, click and follow and send it to your friends and follow them. But today, what we want to do is tie it all together. And, we have Ohio kayak fishing, which is new this year. Cincinnati kayak fishing has been around, I don't know how long, but and then there's a couple of other smaller trails. There's even a Central Ohio trail that Nato runs. And, if you guys if you're not familiar, if you're listening to this for the first time, you're like, what are you talking about? Just go on Facebook or go online somewhere, ask a buddy, hey, I fish out of a kayak and I want to tournament fish. There's a trail that's somewhere near you. Wouldn't you agree, Aaron?
Oh man, yeah. So I've been bouncing around kind of different trails for over a decade now, and you know, BKFT was really the staple in Ohio for a decade. I mean, they just had last year. I think they had their 10th year of existence, and Neil Farley did an excellent job. I mean, for 10 years, he really shouldered that entire kayak trail and took on pretty much all the responsibility as far as just the behind the scenes. And he had a good group of guys behind him to kind of help him with the administrative side and just running the trails. So hats off to him. But it really started if you kind of look at kayak fishing in Ohio, it started before that though. I mean, there's been a group of guys that kind of was centralized around Columbus. And I don't know if you know him or not, Billy, but like one of them, his name's like Andy Gale. I don't know if he still kayaks around, or do you even know who that is?
No, I don't.
So there's like an OG group of guys that literally would just go out on the rivers all the time, on the Scioto River, on the Big Walnut, on the Darby, all these places, and I go down there from time to time and meet with them, and then those guys kind of they'd actually make fun of me for bringing too many rods and all that kind of stuff. But that was like out of my little trophy 126 from or Future Beach trophy 126 from Dick's. And that was like over 10 years ago at this point. And then BKFT kind of started in existence in like 2014. And I really remember like some of their first tournaments at Kaiser. And like that was like the big place back then. Like everybody just fished Kaiser because we didn't really know anywhere else to fish. So I remember there were 64 guys on Kaiser this one tournament back in it might have been 2013 or something. But
Too
um,
many.
yeah, way too many. Way too many on Kaiser. And I mean, I remember I was literally that's where I met Quentin actually. We went out and we all had to launch every tournament you had to launch from a blast off. So like everybody was at the one ramp over on the east side, I guess, not the one with like the parking lot, but like the other one.
Yeah,
And so
well,
you got 60 kayaks beached on the beach. And me and Quentin went over, and I remember he was throwing a wacky rig, and I was just throwing a little, flipping a tube. But anyway, we kind of everybody started there, and you had guys. that were way into it, and way into it by meaning that like you had guys with milk crates versus guys who just use the two rod holders in the kayak. If you had a fish finder, that was a big deal, right? I mean, I feel like Brock Spencer's like locked 10 years ago into that time still, but you can still do well doing that, right? Um, but that trail, what Quentin and I really were talking about when we wanted to approach you talking about this, we've seen guys come and go in that last 10, 11 years of tournament fishing specifically. And, there's guys that you might know, like Jeff Bennett. Do you know who that guy is? Have you ever heard of him before?
No, I bet this is going to keep happening depending on how far we
Yeah.
go back.
All right. Yeah. So, like a guy like Jeff Bennett or a guy like Sean Stone.
I know
Um,
that name.
all right. There you go. So, those
Okay.
are guys that were kind of really major players in this trail, or the BKFT trail, probably 10 years ago or 11 years ago. And then those guys kind of cycled out and they stopped. And then you have like a new group of guys that kind of comes in and then they'll cycle out. And we're kind of like on our every few years, it's like a new group of guys cycles out. And so what Quentin and I were talking about, it's like, why is that happening? We have such good trails, especially right now, to your point, and to kind of bring it back, we've got, Ohio kayak fishing, which is like the new BKFT for all intents and purposes. It's Ohio's really premier trail for the entire state. I mean, because we travel or we're going to travel everywhere, right? I mean, we got Indian Lake coming up on the 20th. Um, can't be more excited about that. Bouncing down to Alum Creek on May 11th, and then, going up to East and West Harbor. And there's just so many great venues that we have. But then you have your regionalized trails. Cincinnati kayak fishing. They've already had an event. We were down at freezing our butts off at East Fork a couple weeks ago. And then we've got CJ Brown coming up just this Sunday. Um, and then we go over to Brookville and everywhere else. But then you've got the Ohio Kayak Open Series, and they're at like kind of West Central Ohio, like Indian Lake, Lake Loramie. Um, I think, well, Kaiser Lake, I think they'll be on Kaiser. So lakes like that. And Grand Lake St. Mary's, which actually Ohio's never had a kayak fishing tournament on Grand Lake St. Mary's. So that'll be interesting. And then Canio, the kayak anglers of Northeast Ohio, they're run by Ken Morris. They're always visiting like Mogador and all the portage lakes up there. Mosquito places like that. And then you got the Central Ohio. Diedrich runs just right down the middle in Columbus, and I really enjoyed fishing those events. A couple years back, I literally tried to make as many as I could. I think I made 10 or 11 of them or something, and got beat out by Alan Rose for Angler of the Year by a point. I wish I would have gone to like one more and just called out my eighth place finish at Allen that year. But anyway, has nothing to do with anything. But regardless, to your point, we've got literally trails. Oh, and then the Toledo League, the new Toledo League up, the TAKAL. I think Mitchell runs that. Yeah, Mitchell Roth runs that up in Toledo, and they have an insane amount of tournaments, by the way. Like if you look at their schedule, I think they have like 50 or maybe it's 15, 17 or 19 tournaments, which is just insane to me. That's a
Yeah.
lot of
Well, and
tournaments,
then
obviously.
they also and Michael Becker helps run that, but they're kind of doing a thing also where it's like the Open Series, the the OCOS tournament, where
Yeah,
they have their regular trail, but then they also have like a Wednesday nighter or something like that.
right.
I think Toledo does something like that too.
Maybe that's what they're doing then. Maybe it's like all combined in one schedule. Yeah, it is right. You're right.
Yeah.
Because I saw some weekday stuff and I was like, holy crap, these guys they're gonna run all that. That's insane. But regardless, there's just a lot of opportunities for guys. But the interesting thing is that every few years, it's just like you see these guys come and you see these guys go. Now, before I kind of like put in my 2 cents on it, like, why do you think that? Because I mean, you've been in it for a few years now, right? Like, this is maybe your third or fourth year, kind of like active in the scene, or
Yeah. Yep.
I
This
mean, so
is
like, why
year
do you
number
think
5, I
like,
think. Yeah.
yeah, year five? So why do you think guys are coming and going? Like, what's the root of it if you had to guess, I guess? I mean, or you had to think about it.
Well, I mean, we could probably draw some conclusions or come up with some assumptions of whatever, however we wanted to go. But if I was just going to throw out a couple, it might not be that much different than like an Elite Series angler, where you see these younger guys that come in and they're crushing it, and you go, yeah. And it's not that what else, what do you have better to do? It's that you, when you're younger, you can take more risk, and maybe taking more risk means you put a little bit more effort and money into something that's a hobby. And as you start to have children, as your career starts to develop and you have more responsibility at work, you can't really risk blowing off work to go practice fishing,
Right.
things like that. So, and I know there's obviously the cognitive decline or whatever. And, we've seen that in people like Quentin here recently, but I'm just kidding. No, we've, and so I think that's part of the elite series where they get older, they can fish up until whenever. But I, in the kayak stuff, obviously it's nothing to do with that. I think it's just the amount of free time or responsibility, things like that. I mean, you brought up Neil, and Neil started this trail with some other guys too, and
Yeah.
I mean, okay, Sean Stone. I think he met someone, and they have some kids, or she had some kids, or what? I
Yeah,
don't know. I don't
Amanda.
know him that well,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
Neil was like, last I heard, he was coaching baseball for his son.
Right.
So
Right.
yeah, I think that's part of it, and I think that as long as we're all respectful and we understand that people come and go, as long as we're all respectful and we're open to people coming back, I think a lot of those anglers will come back, because I'm at the other end of it. I never got into this as a sport or as a tournament fishing when I was younger. I just turned 48. My kids are older, so I have a 20-year-old. I have my son's about to turn 18. So I'm at that point where I took risk, and then I got serious about family and work, and now I'm to a point where there's a little bit more expendable income, and I can afford to keep replacing the jackhammers apparently.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I
Um,
guess so.
yeah,
When you don't use creature baits, sometimes you have to around wood. Yeah.
yeah. Well, anyway, so yeah, we were talking about that before. Yeah, had a problem losing some jackhammers, but I think those are two. I think I named two things. Well, but
Yeah.
you brought it up, so what do you?
Yeah, no, no, for sure. It was a loaded question. I was just seeing what you thought, and I think those are good analysis of it. And the reason I got thinking about it was because at East Fork, when we just had that event down there, and at the major end, I think it was either you or Brian said, I think it was you said, how many people are brand new anglers? And there was like 20 guys that were brand new out of like the 64 that were in that tournament. And I was kind of floored. I was like, wow, like 20, and that's just at the measuring, let alone maybe people that didn't go to the measuring. So let's say maybe 25 guys or 30 people, maybe half the field almost was brand new. So my immediate thought is like, how do we keep those 30 anglers or 25 anglers invested in, whether it's Cincinnati kayak fishing, whether it's Ohio kayak fishing, or whatever trail it is, and kind of keep them into this? And what Quentin and I have really gotten to, talk about over the last couple weeks here, because we were really looking at it specifically. Um, we kind of said when you get into it at first, it's really easy. And so this is almost like a message to the new kayak angler, I guess is the best way to kind of explain it. Because there's like a progression that tends to happen when you get into kayak fishing. And I think you would agree with this too. Like you start off with pretty relatively modest roots. You kind of figure out if you like it. For a lot of guys anyway, guys and girls anyway. And then you kind of see maybe a YouTube video, or you look at, oh my gosh, the Hobie Bass Open series or the Bassmaster Kayak series, and I really want to get into this and do this. And so then you jump in with 2 feet. And I know that Quentin's had this experience. I've had this experience, and I know other guys that we've talked to in Ohio are kind of having very similar experiences too, and I'm sure around the country as well. But when you jump in 2 feet to something like, let's say, the Bassmaster Kayak Series, just as an example, great series, no doubt about it. I've fished an event or two of theirs. But after I do that, or after I fish a Hobie, or after I do something along those lines, and I get waxed by the same 20 people every single time, it can really get you disenchanted with kayak fishing pretty quickly. And your expectations are here when you maybe shouldn't be looking along those lines right off the bat. Maybe start looking at OKF or CKF and going toe to toe with local guys and really dialing it in to see truly what this is all about. Because in my opinion, that's what these local clubs are. You can find just as expensive of a kayak at our local trail as you're going to find at a national trail level. Having said that, the sustainability of going after like an AOY title for OKF is so much more realistic for 99% of the guys out there that are you, that are me, that are Quentin and whoever else that have a family that work, Monday through Friday. And for example, like when I've done Bassmasters and things like that, or back in the KBF days, the regional events and all that, going up to Mississippi River, going down to Guntersville, or going to Chickamauga, or wherever, right? Um, I've always felt like it was a humongous sacrifice for me to do that, even to just go for like a couple days of pre-fishing and then you have a couple days of the tournament. But in reality, that's like almost a week away from my four kids. That's a huge deal. Versus like you were saying, maybe the young guy who doesn't have anything to lose or is going to take that risk and he's 22 years old. And he can do that. Or on the other hand, you've got a guy like Drew who just won the Bassmaster Kayak Series Championship. One of our good friends, and um, he does that really for a living, though. Like his lifestyle is different. That is a very conscious choice that Drew's making. And so, you've got guys that are very, very good on this Ohio side that don't make that jump. So, for example, like a Sean Skidmore doesn't fish national stuff. He probably has his own reasons. I've never really necessarily talked about that with him. But I think, as we look at a guy like Sean over the last 10 years, just super consistent, always doing well, um, he knows he's got his priorities in a certain area. And that is super sustainable because even the national folks who do this on the national level, like I was thinking about this today, and I don't know where these guys are necessarily, but like where did like I don't see Cody Milton out on the tournament trail this year. Like he dominated for like 3 years. I mean, dominated and like
Yeah.
won AOYs, and a lot of people consider him the best kayak angler. I don't see him in the results this year or last year. Like I don't know where he's at or what he's doing. It's like that is so hard to sustain. I mean, I remember Cody sitting up next to me on East Harbor 5 or 6 years ago, or 4 or 5 years ago, when Sean and Chris did really well up on East Harbor. And Cody pulls up in his van and pulls his Hobie out. And I'm like, what in the world? This dude's from like Arkansas. Like, why is he in East Harbor? Like, what is going on? And that is so unsustainable for most people. But back to my point, you know what is sustainable for the new person, for the new kayak angler? Really invest yourself in whatever local trail we have. We've got like 5 or 6 in Ohio that are just amazing local trails that are all run so well. Like, put your resources there first. Don't get too starry-eyed with the Bassmasters yet. Not to say you can't, like maybe do one a year or something, but like don't say, I'm gonna go I'm gonna go down to Possum Kingdom. Well, you're gonna get waxed at Possum Kingdom. Like don't go down to Texas. Like and then go over to Guntersville and then go up to Susky. Like you can, but you might get burnt out like within 3 events and then you're $5,000 on a credit card debt because whatever, or you missed your kid's birthday or whatever it is. Like there could be all sorts of sacrifices you make, but there's not much better than maybe pre-fishing for a few hours on a Friday, after work or whatever, or maybe you take the day off on Friday and then, go down to Alum Creek, see a couple of your buddies, get done at 4 o'clock, camp, and then just have a nice evening and then go and fish against the same people you fished against 3 weeks ago and you go right at it, like head to head. And honestly, there's not much better than that because you can really measure, in my opinion, you can measure like your growth as a kayak angler if you're fishing against the same people on a consistent basis because there's a lot of really good anglers in Ohio. And for if you do well in like an event or you start doing well consistently, getting top tens, you're growing as an angler and you start getting good at techniques and you start really dialing things in. Um, it's just a lot more sustainable. And that I think is for the young anglers, not the young, but like the newer experienced anglers, for kayak fishing anyway. That's what I would say. Like really start to look at the trails critically. Which one do you think you want to invest yourself into? Pick one for the year and just go for it. Because if you try to pick two, you might start to feel like you're getting too spread out, and it's a little bit tough. But pick Ohio Kayak Fishing, pick Cincinnati, pick COKFL, whatever it is, and then just go from there. I mean, even Wednesday nighters, there are, I guess, is it Wednesday night this year or Thursday? No, it's Wednesday night on Kaiser. Brad Lehman's doing a new series on Kaiser too, every single Wednesday.
Yeah.
Um, or not every Wednesday, but like I think it's like 15 Wednesdays or something. But anyways, it's like all here throughout the entire summer. So that's kind of where I wanted to go with that. Just the sustainability of our local trails, because we have in Ohio something this year that just came out, and I talked to Everett Sheets about this at East Fork, and what he kind of discussed was like the idea behind this new Ohio championship in October. That is something that Ohio's needed for a decade, to be quite honest with you. And that is a huge deal for our state. You're going to have people from every corner of the state battling it out for like one day on Hoover Reservoir. I can't
Yeah.
explain like how
Yeah.
excited that makes me.
Well,
Um, we
and
need that.
and it's not even about qualifying for, because I think what the Bassmaster next year is, that's in
Is in
Texas, right?
Texas. Yeah, it's in
So
like
so
Houston.
right. So it's not even about
Yeah.
qualifying from Ohio to go out to Texas and whatever. It just winning the Ohio Bass Nation Championship, winning that trophy will be a big deal. So, and I don't know if it's going to rotate through the different leagues, how it's going to work exactly. They're working with,
Mhm.
we're all working with Bassmaster, and like you said, Everett Sheets is behind that. Has a lot of
Yeah.
information, but you know, Ohio Kayak Fishing has taken the lead for this kickoff year, and I know we've had it a couple of years already. I went to Possum Kingdom the first year of the Bassmaster Kayak Championship,
Yeah.
um, but it may rotate. But the idea this year is that your local trail, if they participate, and we get it, there's going to be probably less a lower amount of trails participating in year one, and then it may grow year two, three, whatever. But if you don't fish Ohio, Ohio kayak fishing, check with your trail and see if they're participating. But yeah, it's crazy. It's going to be Hoover in October. Um, that
I'll
is,
try our best.
I'm looking forward to that. And then
I
I
mean, it's a central location. It's gonna be hard for
yeah,
everybody, but honestly, who cares? And the big thing is if you win that event, that is bragging rights for the year, because you are the man in Ohio. Like, I'm sorry, but like that is a huge accomplishment.
yeah.
And I couldn't be more excited for that. Like, I've got that marked down. Is that at the end of October sometime? Is that kind of what I understand, or is there like a date necessarily set for that, or?
Well, it's going to be later October because the other trails already have their AOY or their championship or classic or whatever. They're going to have
Isn't
to do that.
CKF like in November though? CKF's November 2nd and 3rd on Indian Lake.
Oh yeah, you're right.
So like, is it going to be in
No, it'll be
mid-November?
no, it's going to be in October.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is
Oh,
CKF gonna,
this is another good. I always like to remind everyone when it comes to rules or facts, do not use this podcast or YouTube channel for facts. If we're talking about rules, we'll try to be correct.
for
But
sure?
yeah, I don't know. I think it's going to be in October. It's kind of like a to be determined.
Right on. Cool.
Yeah.
Either way, that's 6 months away or whatever, 7 months away. But what's exciting is the fact that we've now got this umbrella that is uniting hopefully every single trail in Ohio, like in one way, shape, or form. And you're getting like the top anglers from literally every corner of our state to
Yeah.
all battle it out. And that has never happened before, because you've had regional trails, but they never really talk to each other, so to speak. But now you have a reason for all of your best anglers to come and meet. Um, it's just I can't explain. That's a really big deal. So I'm excited about it. I know a lot of people are actually really excited about that, and I'm just curious to see like, how many how many people each trail sends and how all that works out, but that's something to shoot for. So, all right. So if you're a new
Yeah.
kayak angler, let's take it back to that.
Yeah.
That is something that you should really be shooting for, like over like winning a Hobie event, because that is pie in the sky. Like from experience, that I'm just telling you, that is pie in the sky. A lot of things would have to go right to even cash a check, let alone win something like that. Having said that, if you're familiar with Ohio waters in any way, you've got a shot to have some amazing competition and amazing bragging rights for an entire year. And honestly, like it would be cool to have something like a trophy where like it has the name of like each winner each year or something like that. That would be super
Oh
cool.
yeah. Yeah.
You know, whatever that would mean. But like that's just a really neat thing that we have going on in Ohio that we've never had. So kudos to all you guys for getting that together for Everett. And I'm sure you had a hand in it too, Billy, but that's a big deal. So thank you for that.
Well, and you're welcome. Definitely, Everett. I also think this would be a good time to remind everyone that when memberships come up, or when you hear about a trail having a membership,
Mhm.
or these trails. Since we're talking maybe to like newer people, these trails are run by volunteers.
Right.
So we're not, it's not a business where we're profiting whatever. So a lot of the membership fees are going towards additional fees that we have to pay, and or trophies or angler of the year package or things like that. And so we're still with Ohio Kayak Fishing and Cincinnati Kayak Fishing, we're still giving away a t-shirt. And I know you go, oh, giving away a t-shirt, but the membership is $45 or $50 or whatever. Yeah, but we're still giving you a t-shirt that
Right.
normally we could just print them and then start selling t-shirts. We're not in the t-shirt sale business. We want to give you a t-shirt with your membership. And you do, linking this back to the Ohio Bass Nation, you will have to be an Ohio Bass Nation member, and a member of that trail if you're going to qualify through
Mhm.
that trail.
Which
So
those are still open, right? Like, because I
yes,
understood, from what I understood, like at East Fork, Brian was still like, hey, you guys can still sign up for a membership. Just do it now, kind of a thing. Is that right? Like, even if they're not a member yet for like a CKF, even though it started, are they able to
yeah,
still be a member?
yeah. You wouldn't get points if you fished in a previous event before you had signed up. You don't get
Right.
those points. But
Right.
yeah,
But you can
yes,
still
you're
sign
eligible to
up.
sign up. Yep,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So like it's not too late. That's the point. And like I mean there's an event coming up on Sunday at CJ Brown and yeah, I mean get signed up because that regardless of even if you get like AOY for CKF, just the ability to maybe fish against all of Ohio's best anglers in October is worth it. And from what I understood, what Everett even said, if you do want to do the Bassmaster thing, sending whatever percentage we end up determining in Ohio, like what we send to Bassmaster or whatever they allow us to send, just the opportunity to do that if you wanted to do that as well. You can, that's part of the package, right? Like possibly sending people to the classic next year,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Okay.
And those details, if they're not out already, they'll be coming out. So it's basically the so you qualify through your local trail by finishing in whatever they determine is whatever, however you qualify. So
Meaning
they're not
OK, meaning like OKF, CKF, Ohio Kayak Open
yeah,
Series.
we're not Bassmaster is not saying this is how you have to qualify. They're just
Right.
saying you have to have a championship. So if you're going through Ohio kayak fishing, if you're going to qualify for the Bassmaster state championship in October, and you're
Mhm.
going to qualify through OKF, you have to be an OKF member. So
Right.
you need, $50 membership, get a
Right.
t-shirt right now because we still
Right.
have t-shirts. Yeah, yeah. And
I
I
mean,
think it's going to become more clear. This is the first year of us doing it the right way. And nothing against
right.
past trails, but
No.
and it was confusing. So
Right.
yeah, so we're doing it the way I think if you qualified this year, good. You were amazing. You qualified. Everyone did, had an amazing time. But starting next year, I think it's going to have a different feel to it. You're
It's
not
like
gonna.
almost like yeah, no, sorry, sorry to
Yeah,
bother
you're
you.
good.
No, but I mean it's that's exactly right. you have these feeder trails into this qualifying event to go to the national championship.
Yeah.
And that qualifying events, and like you said, late October on Hoover. And it's such a worthwhile $50. For OKF, for example, I think it's $40 or $50 for CKF. But I mean, I joined memberships on both of them. And like you said, if anything, it's just supporting the local kayak fishing scene to make these trails run. I mean, if you looked at what Brian gave away, and Brian Tacey at Strictly Sail, by the way, is the guy funding the operation, essentially, if you want to look at it that way. And like, he gave away probably almost $1,000 worth of goodies. Like if you added it all up, he gave away a lot of valuable things just at the boat ramp at East Fork. And I was thinking like, man, oh man, he's coming out a pocket for quite a bit of stuff. And like you said, the trophies and everything else that also we're giving out, that's a big deal. And whatever ends up getting decided for this championship, I'm sure some of that funding is coming from the memberships as well. And so yeah, getting that membership, I think the Bass membership you have to get is only $15 or something like that, right? It's pretty cheap.
Yeah, it's
So
pretty, yeah.
you're at like $65 for memberships, okay, like it's a little investment, but at the same time, like we're rolling around in thousands of dollar kayaks.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
and it's a hobby. It's something that we really enjoy doing. And really that's part of it. It's, I kind of always laugh about it with my wife. I put a lot of money into it. I saw Michael Grimsley actually put a post up on Facebook. It was like a couple months ago. He said, like, I'm heavily invested in my hobby and that will never change. And like, I couldn't agree with that more. Like, we're all way overly invested in this. It's not about getting your money back. It's about finding a good group of guys you enjoy being around with a positive competitive spirit, all in the same exact realm, which is kayak bass fishing. And it couldn't be a better lifestyle choice. Like for me personally, and a lot of guys that are in it right now, I think would agree at the same thing. And some of these new anglers are going to start to get into this fold, and new names that are starting to pop up with what you said, this new structure and this new, it's kind of like a breath of fresh air for Ohio kayak fishing, if I'm being honest. It's something that Ohio's needed like I said at the beginning, for a long time. And I think a lot of these new guys that are coming in the last year, 2 years, this year specifically, even this year, they're going to see that and say, this is something I want to continue to be around.
Yeah.
I want to upgrade my kayak. I want to go and search new water. I want to learn a new technique. And that's all stuff that you're going to be able to do on any one of these trails throughout the year. So pick one,
Yeah.
invest yourself in it, you'll be good.
You're right. And then, there's a couple of also like little myths that I want to kind of bust. But you did bring up Strictly Sail and Kayak. So, yeah, if
Yeah.
you want Hobie, if you want, in my opinion, top of the line, the kayak, you want to go do that, Strictly Sail and Kayak. They have other kayaks as well. They have the inflatables, they have all that. But you could also go to Loveland. You could go to Raccoon Creek. You want to buy a motor, and do we have any other? Chuck Earls sells
Right.
Torpedo motors, and then you can go up there and he'll install it, take you out on Lake Erie for some
Right.
walleye, and you'll
Right.
start to figure out, if you don't know already, that this community is so small. Ohio is so big, and that's why I think we have the Northeast, Northwest, Southeast, because Ohio is a big state. If you're going to drive, you don't drive from Cincinnati to Cleveland, you know,
Right.
usually for a fishing
Right.
trip. But a myth that I wanted to bust is that in the kayak community, there's cliques, and there's little pockets of people. And you brought up something a couple times that is the perfect proof, because where's the proof? Camping. If you
Mhm.
go camping and you've never met any of these people, and you go camping and you walk up to a campsite, and Sean Skidmore and whoever, Melissa's there and Brad is making hamburgers, whatever, and you walk up and you go, hey, I'm signed up for the tournament tomorrow, and you start talking to them, you're going to figure out real quick that this is a community,
Yeah.
and everyone, people do leave, like you said, and
Yeah.
then some people leave and come back or whatever, but um the clicks don't exist. I said it at the measure in where I was like, you pointed out, hey, show of hands, who's like new. And the reason I want to do that is because we get so wrapped up in either running a measure in or making sure that the angler experience is a good experience at the measure in, or some people don't consider this. Your buddy that you're talking to, maybe you haven't seen your buddy for like a month
Oh, right,
and you know him. So you want to go over and talk to your buddy and you're like, oh my
right,
gosh, whatever. And then if I'm brand new, I'm looking over there and I'm like, oh, these guys are like besties or whatever.
right.
Meanwhile, you don't know they. So do this like, and you can come up to me. Come up to me, introduce yourself, talk to me. I will stay late. I'll be the last one to leave the measure in. You know, if there's people hanging out that want to talk and get to know us or they have questions, sometimes online is not the best way. Sometimes you do just want to you ever have an issue with like customer service or with like some business and you're like, can I just call a phone number and talk to a person? So
Right.
sign up, and if you had any issues, maybe you got a fish DQ'd, maybe you got a deduction, or you didn't realize something, you needed a 360 light or whatever, and maybe it's come to the majoring.
Or
And
maybe it's just like what if, something breaks on your boat? Like it's good to make relationships in general. Like I know people at East Fork had some things getting broken. I mean, it's like the first tournament, kick the rust off kind of a thing. It's good to put yourself out there and just say hi to people.
yeah,
And the easiest way, like I said, Quentin and I met just because we ended up fishing right next to each other at a random Kaiser event 12 years ago. And now we're like really great friends, you know what I mean? And like we talk quite a bit, and I've met some of my best friends through kayak fishing. And I mean, I think you would probably agree. It's funny. I think I have more kayak fishing friends than I do normal friends that live around my area. But like those are the kayak fishing friends are the ones I want to hang out with more because I really enjoy kayak fishing, quite a bit, comparatively to whatever else, is out there. But yeah, I think you make all good points there. And getting just looking at the new person thing, get signed up, just figure out which trail you want to do. Look at the websites. A lot of these trails have websites. I know OKF and CKF have websites like OhioKayakFishing.com, CincinnatiKayakFishing.com. I know Ohio Kayak Open Series is just on Facebook, Toledo area is just on Facebook, and then Central Ohio Kayak Fishing League's on Facebook, and then you have the Northeast Ohio Kayak Anglers, or Kayak Anglers of Northeast Ohio. I think they're on a website and they actually run through the Kayak Anglers organization, which is like a
yeah.
bigger umbrella like that Noah Heck started over in Pennsylvania.
And
But
a lot of charity involved
yes,
with that.
and not high pay-ins, but that's the thing is like a lot of these regional trails, they're not as high of pay-in, for example, as Ohio Kayak Fishing is. So like the OKF pay-in is like, is it $65 or $75 this year? If do you know off the top of your head? It's higher this year, I
Oh,
saw.
OKF.
Yeah,
Oh, it's 65. Yeah. So
65.
BKFT was 75 last year. So
Okay.
we dropped it $10.
Cool.
Yep.
So it's easier, it's more accessible, but still it is higher than like Cincinnati kayak fishing, which is $40. And if you do the big bass, it's $10. And so it's like it is a little bit higher stakes for OKF. I mean, higher stakes, it's like $20 or whatever, but still it is.
And
Uh,
Big Bass included in the price.
it is. Okay, so 65 included. So it's only 15 more dollars for OKF. But like these smaller regional trails, I know like OKOS is I think it's like $40, CKF's like $40. The Wednesday nighters at Kaiser are like $30. COKFL's like $25 or $20. So whatever level you want to get into it, you can get into it. And the other thing to kind of consider here is what you're comfortable with. So for example, COKFL doesn't allow motors. Wednesday, and Wednesday night, that's a Wednesday nighter trail. Toledo Area Kayak Anglers League doesn't allow motors. I don't believe Canio allows motors either.
I don't think they do.
Yeah. So, if you're a motor person, then you're going to be looking toward OKF and CKF. If you're kind of one that's like, I don't want a motor, no big deal. I don't want to have to deal with the pressure and stress of feeling like I'm at a disadvantage, maybe. then go fish one of the other trails. Oh, and
Well,
I guess Ohio
yeah.
Kayak Open Series also allows motors too.
Well,
So
yeah, and the other thing is, you mentioned Drew Gregory earlier. So
sure.
starting the Kayak Adventure series, and the thing there is like choose your own adventure. So the only reason I bring this up is, you said if you choose motor, if you don't choose a motor, you brought up Brock Spencer. He could go out in a OKF event, and everyone takes off with their forward-facing sonar and their motors or whatever,
Right.
and then Brock will go back in a cove and kick everyone's butt.
Yeah.
We've seen it happen.
And he
So
does.
yeah. So yeah, but if you do have a motor and you want to use it, make sure you know the rules and you understand the rules. You don't want to
Mhm.
get DQ'd or even worse, have someone thinking that you were intentionally like doing something, you know. So know the
What are
rules.
some of the rules that you think are kind of most important if you had to say like, I mean, like as a new air angler, what should you be aware of?
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously the PFD is the big one, and if you've listened to enough live seminars or people talk about it online or whatever, you know that we call them PFDs all the time. Stop commenting. Stop leaving a comment that we called it a PFD or a PDF. That's what I meant. A PDF.
PDFs aren't going to save your life really, but
No, no. So a personal flotation device is what you need. So you have to have it on at all times when you're in the tournament. If you're layered up, you're wearing a jacket, it's you need to switch, take your jacket off, or you need to add layers. You can stop fishing, take your line out of the water, unzip, change it, but you have to be zipped up. And personal safety, life safety is just we can't we can't play around that's number one. I think the board thing, the measuring board is kind of old news now, but it's
yeah,
Catch. So go on and Catch. They have the original Catch, the metal board. They have a Catch X, which is like an aluminum, and then the Catch carbonate. So you have three options, three different price points,
yeah,
and tons of colors to choose from. And make sure you tether it. That's not a
yeah.
rule thing.
They don't float.
They don't float. I lost a Catch carbonate. It had a Catch identifier on it, which is made of metal, and it sank. So
Yeah, they say.
um, some things that people overlook sometimes. Brad Lehman had called it out a couple times where I hadn't really realized some people weren't doing that, and I'm like, man, you're right. So he kind of brought it to my attention even more, and it's the 360 light. You know,
Yeah,
people get out there if you have a motor and you don't have your running lights or you don't have a 360 light, wait till the sun comes up. You
right.
know, don't risk it. Don't go out there and try
Gotta
to.
be legal, let
Yeah,
alone being legal. I mean, that's like what the state of Ohio says you have to have if you have a motor, especially those running lights on, the red on the left, green on the right, and then the 360 light. But even if you're just a kayak angler and you're going out, you need to have that 360 light, like
yeah,
before dark, before light. So like, and it doesn't, I mean, a lot of people use the Yak Attack Visicarbon pole, like that's a great one. But some people are like, I don't want that thing sticking up. I actually use one that I think I got it off of some paddle store, like literally like 10 years ago, but it's just like a foot tall, but like it's still visible from everywhere. And like, I put it in the back of my kayak and just leave it there all the time, and it works perfectly. But
yeah,
yeah, you need that gear just as a very basic entry into this game.
yeah,
As far as the identifier, I think is another thing that a lot of people tend to either forget an identifier or just forget to put it in their picture as well. But this year I kind of understand it's a little bit different. Can you write it on your hand this year as far as your identifier is concerned?
yeah. And I'll explain that a little bit more. I know Chad Hoover had talked about with KBF having the identifier was a very specific size. So they had issues 10 years ago. People would cut the board down, move the board. They would do some goofy things, and the size of the identifier was a big deal in helping them
Hmm.
determine if someone was cheating or not. So when you get into those
Oh,
$25,000 prizes and more, that's a little bit more like we're local trail, smaller trail, so we're not as it's not that we're not concerned or we don't care. We do, but I think the risk is a lot smaller. So
right.
the biggest thing is the code is not released until
Dark.
yeah.
Yeah.
So we're gonna do that, but um with the code, I think just knowing how to measure a fish
Hmm.
properly is probably the next thing that it's kind of weird because yes, it's a rule. And yes, you have to follow all the fish submission pictures, catch, photo release rules for your picture. But it's the thing that when you're in the moment, everyone's, oh, I can do this, I can do, and you catch a 20-inch fish. It's 7 a.m. and barely awake and you're shaking.
Right.
The mouth being closed is huge.
Mm.
OKF and CKF this year are allowing to pinch the tail. And again,
Yeah.
it's one of those things where we kind of took a lead off of, Hobie and Bass or Kayak Adventure Series, where we want to make sure that the rules make sense for the angler. So
Right.
it didn't make sense. Like, why can't you pinch the tail? If the ODNR comes over and they're checking your limit for
Crappie.
the day,
Yeah.
they're gonna pinch the tail, right?
Right. They're that 9-inch crappie. You're gonna be able to do that. Now, I I don't know if the ODNR allows open mouth or not, but just to be 100% clear, no open mouth for these bass tournaments. So regardless of what you're doing with the tail, make sure you ease that fish onto that bump board, put just a little bit of pressure forward so it closes its mouth
Yeah.
all the way, because even a little crack's gonna be a half inch. So like,
You know what? And you only get, in most cases, you only get about a quarter inch because I did it. So I put the fish on there and
yeah,
I measured it with the mouth closed. You can only do this to a fish that it barely hits the line. So you
yeah,
barely catch a 17-inch fish. And
right,
then you let their mouth crack open a little bit and then see if you can get it to 17 and a quarter.
right,
So you're trying to get that extra quarter inch and then you
right.
lose a half inch.
Now there's like, so this is also back like 8 to 10 years ago. There's actually guys that were like taking their fingers and like pushing, like with their middle finger, they'd push the mouth of these bass like way open and they would get an inch off of that. But like that's where, and not just in Ohio, like this was happening like everywhere.
Yeah.
And like that's where a lot of these rules came in because people were like literally breaking these basses' mouths, like getting an extra inch or inch and a half. Like some of those Florida bass that have those big old underbite lips, like open their mouths up and all of a sudden they're an inch and a half longer. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, well, we can't be doing that. So that's where a lot of that came in to also protect the bass themselves. Now I have one more question about, because I don't know this. I want to ask you, when you say pinch the tail, like you can pinch that tail, but is your hand allowed to actually be on the tail,
No.
like as you're pinching it? Okay, so you can pinch it, get your hand off the tail, get your hand in front of the caudal fin or peduncle or whatever they call it, that fin that leads to the tail, basically.
Yeah, your hand can be on the tail, just not the end of it where it's on the board.
Oh, okay. So you technically could
Yep.
like pinch that tail, and as long as you can see the edge of the tail, you're still good to go.
Yeah,
Like in the
and
picture.
the
Oh,
best
okay.
way, look up, so Bassmaster has a perfect diagram because they have a red line that comes across and then it goes up. It's like the last, don't hold me to this, but like the last quarter inch,
Oh,
most
okay.
cases of the tail.
Makes sense.
Yeah, so
That's
you can,
how, yeah. We used to do that. So I used to help Drew run river bassin, and that's how kind of we rolled with that. So that makes
yeah,
sense.
yep, yeah,
Cool.
pretty cool.
Okay. No, I wasn't quite sure. So, one thing I wanted to ask, are you fishing the CKF event on Sunday, or are you waiting until
Yes.
OKF on at any you are?
Yeah, I'm doing both.
Okay.
I'm signed up on the 14th, April 14th at CJ Brown, CKF, and then
Nice.
April 20th, Indian Lake.
Is OKF open? Where can I access that? Because I looked for it and I did not see it. Is it on the website or on Facebook, or where would that registration be?
It's in Tourney X. So
Oh,
look up.
it's in Tourney X. Okay,
Yep.
cool. Well, I guess that's another thing maybe cover for new people. Like that's where you register for your tournaments. Like that's where the entire interface is. Like,
Yeah.
so get your Tourney X app, make sure you update your app if you haven't done it since last year, if you're not new, and register for your tournaments. I guess I should have looked in Tourney X. I don't know why I didn't do that, but
Oh yeah. And then
yeah.
yeah, and then you can also see the rules there because like Indian Lake, hey, how far can I go up these canals? It'll tell you the
Right.
cutoff in each
Yeah.
direction up the canals or whatever. And
Are you guys going by for OKF like the and CKF like the state maps? Like is that essentially what it is? Just like whatever the map is that the ODNR puts out, or like
in
typically?
general, that's gonna be yes, but check Tourney X, because if you do want to go a little bit further up a creek, just check and see if you can. Because
Gotcha.
the reason I say Indian Lake is a perfect example,
Oh yeah.
because it's not big enough.
Right.
Map that they
Yep.
release, because
It
Indian Lake
cuts
is,
off like the edges.
yeah,
Right.
yep.
That's what I was asking. Cause
Yeah,
yeah,
that wouldn't make sense. Like, we want you to be able to go further. So,
right. It like cuts off like a half a mile of like the preserve in the north side, and it cuts off the rivers on the east side. And I'm like, I don't know. Yeah, I didn't know. That's good to know. Yeah, so check Tourney X.
yep, cool.
Well,
And then,
I'm excited for Sunday.
when
What's that?
you, well, I was gonna say, when you're in Tourney X, because I had messaged Dwayne Wally one time. I'm like, it's broken, man, and he's like, no, you're doing it wrong. When you pull up when you get to the rules on the Tourney X page, there's a little box, and you don't. I didn't realize it. That box is like an open box that has the infinite scrolling. So you
Under
can,
the event itself?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So if you might think it's cut off. Hey, they only gave me like a small paragraph of rules. Scroll on that paragraph in Tourney X, and it'll keep scrolling to give you more information, if there's more information to need.
Yeah.
And
Right on.
then yeah, man. Well, listen, I cannot thank you enough for doing this. I know we were almost late to the call because I was out at the pond trying my chatterbait, and you already knew, and you even said, Tyler Berger, you knew what
Where
was
there's
going
only
on.
so many resources in Ohio to learn about fishing, and he's like the main one, so we all are probably doing the exact same thing
Yeah.
that he talks about.
Yeah, and I
But
actually, the more I thought about it, like right after I told you, I realized I actually lost 3 jackhammers that day, but one of them
that's
was on a backlash where it snapped, and I'm like, I can't. I don't even know if
okay.
you're allowed to count that.
No, that's not.
Yeah.
That's well, I don't know. Depending on where the knot was, it at the knot or was it at the?
No, it was a nick. It was a nick in the
Oh
line.
yeah, nothing you can do about
But
that.
I was out on Hoover one time, and I guess we can wrap it up. But I also want to find out, is there anyone else you want to thank, give a shout out
Oh,
to? But
yeah,
real
we can
quick,
talk about that later. Yeah, for sure.
yeah, real quick, I was on Hoover, and the first jackhammer I ever lost, I had the line was sitting there, it was sitting on my, and I had to retie my leader line. And so I retied my leader line, got it all tied up, and then I picked up the jackhammer and threw it in the water. And it was like, as soon as it left my hand, I knew what I had done.
I've
So
done that with a phone before. I know, I think Hannigan did it once with a measuring board. He said he took the fish, put the fish on the measuring board, measured the fish, took the measuring board, threw it over the side of the boat. I mean, like it happens. I've done it with camera gear. I've done it with all sorts of crap.
yeah,
So yeah, no, no, I'm excited to get going. I'm excited. Sunday, I'm really excited about it. I've never fished. Here's the other thing. I don't, I have not fished a lot of CKF events in the past. I think I fished one at like last year. I fished, or 2 years ago, I fished Rocky Fork or something. And then I just fished the East Fork one. And I'm going to fish CJ Brown. Even though I've been really fishing around Ohio for 10 years or more in a kayak specifically, I haven't fished a lot of these lakes. And so like these are all brand new to me. Like I'm gonna go on Sunday morning and see the lake for the first time, just like a lot of other people, you know what I mean? And so don't feel like just because maybe you don't get to go out and pre-fish for like 2 days, oh, I'm at a big disadvantage. Like hardly anybody pre-fishes for these things. You just get up, and a lot of people,
right.
not a lot of people, some people pre-fish, but some people sleep in the parking lot. Some people will drive up the morning of, and so just kind of don't feel like you're ever at a huge disadvantage. So just do what you can, get involved, and you'll be good to go. But as far as people to thank, I would say St. Croix Rods. Just been fortunate to be working with them for several years. And one of the newer folks I've been working with is BioNO Power. Um, they take care of Ohio Kayak Open Series really well, and like the affiliate that Brad runs on Wednesday nights. I know they also take care of like other trails, like tri-state kind of trails as well. And I've never had problems with their batteries. And they always are just very, very reliable. Like they don't drain down. Lithium, obviously, if you don't know, is another great weight savings thing for kayak fishing. And whether it's Bioenno or another brand, kind of if you can start to look forward to like upgrading your boat, that's something to possibly do. And then, the big sponsor for the trail, Strictly Sail. Like that's, Brian and family, we obviously can't thank them enough for like really taking on a lot of the back end administrative work of specifically CKF and OKF. I mean, I think it's 5 or 6 kayaks from Brian over the years. And that's just in the last like 5 years, because I was with Jackson for 7 years or whatever before that. And I was their team manager for 5 of those years. And just, I was with Jackson. And so I didn't really get the chance to go out and branch out with other brands and things. But since kind of stepped away in 2019 from that, I've been in Hobies and Old Towns and Crescents and like all sorts of, and
Yeah.
like, I mean, I worked with Loveland too, and got a Crescent from them. And man, I've been in a lot of different kayaks. I'm in a new canoe right now, Unlimited from Brian, and all sorts of good stuff. So yeah, so Brian, thank you as well to you. So that's all I have to thank and go with. So yeah.
All right. Yeah, man. I love it. Hope to see everyone out there on the 14th or OKF on the 20th and the rest of the season. If you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out to any of us. We'll help you guys out. And like I said, make sure you like, subscribe, and we'll see you guys in the future. Thanks, Aaron.
See you
Bye,
guys.
everyone.
Thanks, Billy. See you.